when it has to start. I'm a devoted staff over here. Improvising. Great. Baruch Hashem, everything is... there once was a chuppah that was extremely late. And then when they finally got their act together, they realized they left the ksuba in Bnei Brak, and the chuppah was in Yerushalayim or something like that. Ham to you, Uncle Yankel. When they finally were ready, they had the chassan held the ring, and he was so nervous and shaking, which he may have been anyway, that he dropped the ring before he put it on the kala's finger, and everyone watched it roll into a sewer. That was like... so again, Chaverim came, very emergency vehicles, and they had their... Well, they do there, I don't know, in Yerushalayim when rings fall into sewers, but whatever the normal procedure is. So somebody said, doesn't sound like a very good simon for the chasana. The brisker of chas v'shalom. He said there is a moment, there is an exact second when that chuppah is supposed to take place. It's not going to take place a second before, it's not going to take place a second afterwards. He says everything is hashgacha. So, I guess now is the moment that the shir is supposed to begin. I thank everyone for their patience. So we have Rabbi Sai this week, good news and bad news. The good news is it's a week closer to Purim. Bad news is it's a week closer to the fiscal cliff. Some say Hainu Hach. What's going on in Washington with the fiscal cliff negotiations and Purim is bets and very similar. Good news, they say that the chemical weapons in Syria has been secured. The bad news is that North Korea can now shoot a rocket that could reach California, Rahman al-Islam. Let's see. Right, Uncle Yankel, what we've been through in our lives, we're not worried about North Korea, right? I know. But these they have a little younger here than us, so... Okay. The good news, let's see, the bad news is there's a terrible storm brewing outside. The good news is at least we see global warming is unneutral. Okay. I never quite figured out the umbrella trick. If you get one of those chad pami umbrellas, one of those disposable ones you buy in the people pop up, and you ever notice them? As soon as it starts raining, people pop up in street corners, sell umbrellas. What do they do with those umbrellas when it doesn't rain? I don't know. Where do they keep them? So those that you buy, generally speaking, when the first wind comes, it goes inside out. So I decided to buy a real good one. And tonight was my first chance to use it. My first problem was I couldn't get it open, which I realized it's real good. So when I finally did get it open, it was like a piece of steel. The first wind came, I thought I'm going to wind up on top of the roof. I had to make a choice of letting go of the umbrella or... So basically, like everything else, there's good news, and all depends how you look at it. Bad news is tonight in the storm, I had a very hard time starting my car. The doors were jamming. When the heater went on, it sounded like the 21-gun salute.
Oh, I got one.
Yeah. Yours too, huh? The good news is that happens even when the weather is not this way, so it really wasn't that much of a difference. As I've told you many times, I brought my car into the mechanic and I said, I think it needs a new radiator. He said, I think the radiator needs a new car. That's his way of looking at it. We do keep the brakes and the tires and the front steering safe, though. The Tzad HaShava, I can go on and on and on. Right. The Tzad HaShava, in regard to all these things, is this, and probably most of everything else that's on your mind tonight, and anyone else that's listening, is that there's nothing that you and me can do about it. Okay? That we can't do much about the weather, and we can't do much about the country's debt, and we can't do much about what's going on in the world. And the truth is that it probably, all of what we just discussed has nothing to do with the real issues that are going on in our life that are keeping us up at night. It probably has nothing to do with any of the above. And the truth is that the issues that keep us up at night are probably not our real problems in life anyway, as Reb Tzadok says, we've mentioned. Most of the things we worry about are not nogeya. And most of the things that are problems are something that we did not anticipate. There's a reason for that, as Reb Tzadok explains it, because most of the things we worry about, if we're smart, we approach it correctly, we say, Rabbi Hashem, help me, and that's all we need. We try to make our lives a little bit better. So B'yatzim Reb Tzadok says, as we've mentioned many times, if you're worried about something, it's a very good sign that the Siman HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving you a heads up. He's giving you a heads up, you can probably do something about it. We live in a time period where it's, they didn't have clocks in the times of the Gemara. Even your great-grandfather had a clock. He got his chassan and got a chassan watch that broke the next year. There was no way to fix it. The watch was a very choshev azach. There was a town clock, but before that, they had sundials, a cloudy day, and you were out of business. Didn't have clocks. The Gemara Masechtas Pesachim, people were off by 1 hour, 2 hours. So we think, how could I live without a watch? How could I live? I have to know the exact time. People today, you have to have exact watches, and you have to have atomic clocks. That's scary, atomic clock. I don't know. I got one in the mail, like from a moiset or something. An atomic clock. I don't keep that next to my bed. No atomic clock. Press the wrong button. I don't know what. Just imagine. What happened to 45th Street? An atomic clock, or one of those atomic clocks. I don't know. Good old Casio watch is good for me.
I have one. What?
You got one? No, I have my own. Right.
It's out of print.
It's out of print. In any event, we live very time-oriented. We measure time to the split second. Your great-great-grandfather didn't even know what time it was. He must have been very nervous. No. We are very nervous. He was very relaxed. Because we don't live in the present. We live in the past. We live in the future, what's going to be. Everything is based on projections about tomorrow. They didn't know. They didn't have a weather report what was going to be tomorrow. They woke up in the morning and they looked out and they saw it and they dealt with it. So because you didn't have a weather report to tell you that it was going to snow or rain tomorrow, so you dealt with the situation as it came. You knew that you have no way of knowing what's coming tomorrow. And if you know you have no way of knowing what's coming tomorrow, you are much more in fit to be able to deal with it, as opposed to living in an illusion that somehow life is under control. So, Vayivarchaim Vayoimahu, says the Rebbe Rabbunim. You know what the greatest bracha Yaakov Avinu gave his children, and Yaakov Avinu gave that to subsequent generations? That means he gave it to us as well. Vayivarchaim, he gave them a bracha that Vayoimahu. You just live with that way. Don't sit and say, I should have, could have, would have. I would have taken life insurance 20 years ago. It would have been $50,000 cheaper. And I should have, would have, could have, and I could have, I listened to this shadchan, I could have, I would have. Forget about what happened. It's not Nogeya. And tomorrow, oh no, maybe today I can make it, but tomorrow I'm already projecting huge. Forget about tomorrow. Live today. Vayivarchein Vayoimahu. And the Rebbe Rabbunim says more. Vayivarchein Vayoimahu, that when you wake up in the morning and you say, this is the day I was hoping for. This is the day I was hoping for. I was once present by someone who had a very serious surgery where many eye surgeons gave up on him. And he had a serious surgery and they took the band-aids off and he was able to see. And the simcha in the room was beyond imagination. I said, so, and if we wake up every morning and we open our eyes and we can see? So there should be any less of a simcha that we have to chas v'shalom go through a crisis? So vayivarchein vayoimahu. He gave them a bracha that vayoimahu, I'm alive, I'm okay, life is on. I had a friend, he was on a flight recently. He was in first class, where, as you know, wine flows freely over there. And this fellow sitting next to him, an elderly gentleman, in a tight black turtleneck shirt, white hair, the way he described him, starts coming over to him. He's a little tipsy, and he says he was frightening me, the way he was acting. I knew whatever he says is going to scare me. I mean, if he would have told me he was the pilot, that would have scared me more. But Lamaisa, he starts telling him, he looks at him, and he says, I was always fond of Jews. That's a big problem. When someone tells you that, you look out. Aha. And he's always fond of Jews. Right. I remember I had a cousin, he learned in Yerushalayim. So the night of the Seder, he went to the Kaisel, he called over a bunch of backpackers. One guy sat next to him, and he said to him, I want to tell you something. He said, I'm not an alcoholic. I said, oy vay, I never suggested that you were, but if you're telling me you're not, it's in the git. Then all of a sudden he started, every time they drank the Dalek Kais, he goes, I'm not sure that I did Haseba properly. You have to re-drink, don't you? And then he said, oh, the right side. Oh, no, the left side. Oh. He said, I'm ambidextrous, so I think I have to on both sides just to be sure. So, he went to a Hilchos Pesach Shir. The only thing he heard was that you have to drink over the kais. If you didn't do a Seba properly, he popped up. So he began to study how to not to do a Seba properly. So he was Mekayim Adel Yoda by this. He knew right away when he said he's not an alcoholic. Shishintzuris. So this guy, as he's getting more and more drunk, he starts making all kinds of not nice comments and all sorts of not nice jokes about Jews, which I will not repeat, except for one. At one point he told him as follows. He said to him, what does a Jew and a canoe have in common? He said, what? He said, both don't tip, he said. So he got really angry, and he said to him, I just want to tell you something. He was going to tell him, I tip every... So who am I talking to? Some shikha guy, 30,000 feet in the air. So he saw how shikha he was. He says, I'm going to play this right. He said, you heard what I said? You're a Jew and a canoe have in common. Both don't tip. You got it? So he tells him, yeah? He says, every canoe I went on tipped. So he goes, yeah, every Jew I met tipped. He's stuck, he didn't realize he trapped him in his conversation. Which is really, most of the time when we get insulted, we defend the Gavra. How do you say that about me? We're willing to fight for our honor and our pride, and then you get into big trouble when you have two people fighting for their honor and pride. But when you deal with the Chefza, let's talk about canoes. Then it's much easier to deal with. Yaakov Avinu says, "Hey, asvu v'yagi." He gives Musar. He says to Ruvain, he says, Shimon and Levi, "Or apam ki az." He curses their wrath. He doesn't curse them. He curses their wrath. You tell a person, a kid, a spouse, liar. That's it. You just cut your marriage potential into half. The difference between saying liar or saying that's not true, which automatically makes the person a liar, because the definition of a liar is someone who says things that are not true. But when you focus on the chefza, it is very, very different than the gavra. And that's an important rule in chinuch, an important rule in criticizing. So Yaakov Avinu says, hey, asvu, gather together, v'yagid elechem, and I will tell you, es asher yikra eschem, what's going to happen to you, be achris hayomim, and guess when achris hayomim is? It's our days when North Korea is firing rockets over the Pacific, and Iran is doing theirs, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu is creating Arish al-Mashiach. So what did Yaakov Avinu tell us about our days? He bikash Yaakov legaloi sesakates. Yaakov wanted to reveal when Mashiach is coming. When estalka mimena shchina, the shchina left him. So what does that mean? I'm not sure. We'll soon try to analyze this a little bit. The hischa laimer dvarim achayim. So he started talking about different things. So today, one of my talmidim asked me this shayla. He said Yaakov wanted to reveal when Mashiach is going to come. So he knew obviously when Mashiach is going to come. So he could have said Mashiach is coming. Tesvav Tevis Tav Shin Samach Gimel. Right? He could have said that. And then all of a sudden, Ministalka Mimenu Shchina. He lost his Ruach HaKodesh. Okay, but he already knew when Mashiach is coming. So even if he lost his Ruach HaKodesh, he didn't lose his memory. So why couldn't he continue to tell them what he knew from before he lost the Ruach HaKodesh? Bikesh Yaakov Legaloi says, okay, so that means he already knew when it was coming. Because guys, I want to tell you when Mashiach is coming. Get ready. Okay, don't buy that house. Don't invest in that apartment building. No. Mashiach is coming tomorrow. Also, Nistalka Mimenu Ruach HaKodesh. But why couldn't he tell them when Mashiach is coming? He obviously knew that from before. Why the Hischaloimer Dvarim Acherim? Why did he have to? So some learned Shat. Listen, Yaakov saw that he lost his Ruach HaKodesh, so he understood that that's a sign from Shemayim. They don't want him to reveal when Mashiach is coming. Some say, I think that some Sefer says that Yaakov realized that Mashiach could come in one or two ways. Either it comes when we do tshuva, or when we decide to get along with each other and be nice boys, wipe out some sinas chinam, or it's going to come ultimately at one point whether we like it or not, whether we're ready for it or not. So Yaakov, of course, could not tell them when it's going to come, if it would come when we're ready for it, because that's bchira, that's our free choice. So obviously Yaakov meant the final deadline, obviously. So then he realized that would be Lashon Hara on Klal Yisrael. That meant that it would take till then. Until then you can't get your act together and get along. That's how long it's going to take. So Rameir of Pramishlan, he once, there was a certain, the Rameir had lived nothing, poverty should be poverty. There was one person that had tainas on him. He said, you took away my chassidim. You took away your chassidim. So once they happened to be traveling together on a wagon, which somebody prearranged, even the guy claimed he didn't. He just happened to invite one to be the moil and the other to be the sandik by the same bris. And they were and sent the wagon for them, but he didn't prearrange that they should be on the same wagon. So Rameir was trying to talk to this person. No, he's not listening. So Rameir said, let me tell you a story. He says that there was a Marano in the times of the Spanish Inquisition. He was a government minister. He was very big in the government. Now he's dying. He's on his deathbed. and he realizes he has to call a priest for him to confess and read him his last rites. If he doesn't,
How can you call it?
but if he doesn't, he's going to give away his family.
Have my faith. Don't come here.
Yeah, but he was in Spain. This was Marano's. This was not everyone has the bravery. Not everyone walks around armed with a stick. You know what I mean? Not everyone. He was scared. He wasn't, but he was scared. He was scared for his family, so he had no choice. He said, "Summon the priest." Then they call the priest, and he walks in. They send everybody out because it's the confession. He's like, too weak to talk. So he asks the doctor, is he really too weak to talk? Well, they can catch out a few words, He suddenly can't talk. So the priest chops the matzah already. So he leans over to his ear, he whispers into his ear, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, says the priest. So they start, they discuss their Ksais and Asivas, or whatever Marano's talk about, and then he passed away, and the priest walked out and said, yeah, he read me his last rites. So Reb Meir turned to him, he said, tell me, only under those circumstances two Yidden can talk to each other? Other than that, two of us just sitting on a wagon, we can't talk to each other? So the man broke and he started to cry, and they embraced each other. Okay, so if we didn't get our act together till Mashiach comes, that's that's Lashon Hara, so Yaakov didn't want to say it. But I heard another pshat. Bikesh Yaakov legalois es hakes. Yaakov called his Talmidim together. He wanted to tell them when Mashiach is coming. Now, why did he want to tell them when Mashiach is coming? He wanted to tell them when Mashiach is coming because he felt that they'll be able to hold on. The Gula is going to come. But he never checked to see when Mashiach is coming. Because why is that negayah to his Avodas Hashem, when Mashiach is coming? Yaakov himself could at any moment, I don't want to use the word Google into his Ruach HaKodesh, Chas v'shalom, to be mavdul bein tameh l'tahor, but Yaakov at any moment could have, gone online Ruach HaKodesh and seen when Mashiach is coming. He had access. We don't have that password. But he never did. It wasn't a guy. I do everything right. The Mashiach should come today. Why do I have to see when it's coming? What does tomorrow have to do with me? My job is to serve Hashem today. Bikesh Yaakov legalis is the case. He saw there's going to be a difficult galus. He saw the children are going to have their ups and downs. They're going to face impossible situations. They may even reach certain ups and downs in the chain of galus where they're going to wonder about the continuity of Klal Yisrael. I better tell them when Mashiach is coming. It's going to come. At that point, the style coming on in Ruach HaKodesh, and he couldn't check anymore. But at Hanami, till then, it wasn't a gaya to him. I live for today. Today is today. Stop worrying about tomorrow. Stop being upset and angry about yesterday. Now some say Pshat, so what happens over here? So Bikesh Yaakov legalis is a case. He wants to reveal when Mashiach is going to come. Then Estalka Mimena Ruach HaKodesh. Some say, I think from Mechaskel Lekuzma, from others, that Yaakov is telling people what's going to be when Mashiach is going to come. There's not going to be any Ruach HaKodesh. We're not going to have today, Vilna Goyens and Baal Shem Tovs that do Moifsim. We're not going to have it. We don't have Nevi'im. And we have to plug it through and keep Amunah. Lehele Garishna said before Mashiach comes, there's going to be another contest between the idol worshippers, the Avodah Zarah, and the good guys. And he says the fire is going to come down on the Avodah Zarah side. He said that's how hard the tests of Amunah are going to be. And we have to plug it through. So his Chaloimer Dvarim Achayrim, he said there's not going to be any Ruach HaKodesh before Mashiach comes, and therefore his Chaloimer say start talking other things. Just Mamunah Pshuta, that's it. No Moifsim, I have nothing, I can't promise to open up Shnei HaShemayim, that's it. Deal with life as life goes on. And if a person sinks into the abyss, and he has a lot of chatoim swinging around him, then plow through it, ride through it, plow through it. The original plan was, they were scared Saddam Hussein had chemical weapons, so they built the half tracks in such a way they can ride through it. We have to ride through it, that's all. You take a Gemara, and you take a Chumash, and you take a Tillim, and you take a Siddur, and we ride through it. Yaakov knew this was coming. And it was paved to us. Somebody once came to the Kotzker Rebbe. He says, in the middle of davening, I have machshavas zoros. Strange machshavas. So what are the machshavas zoros? He says he has machshavas of this bad thing, that bad thing. He says, that's not machshavas zoros for you. Those aren't strange machshavas. He says, those are your machshavas. He says, you live in it. What do you mean? He says, strange machshavas. The person's not in it. You're in it. Ride through it. So Yaakov Avinu says, that let me tell you what's going to happen is Asher Yikra the Achris Hayam. Now we know how do you, the word kara could be spelled in three different ways. Kara with an aleph, Yikra with an aleph means what? Called. Vayikra ner gerufin. Right? Just so you remember that. Vayikra with a hay means it happened. It occurred. And there's one more Vayikra with an ayin. Vayikra with an ayin means it ripped. So look in the pasuk. How is it spelled? I'm going to tell you it's Asher Yikra B'Achris Hayamim, and Yikra is spelled with an aleph. So if Yaakov is saying I'm going to tell you what's going to happen B'Achris Hayamim, it should have been spelled with a hey, not with an aleph. So Sham Shafol Hirsch says, no, that's Yaakov Avinu's lesson. It's going to look like Yikra. It's going to look like it's just happening, and you have to see that Yikra. This is Hashem's calling. The Revi Nesayin that we have, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knew exactly what we're up against, and He gave us the neshamas, and He gave us the wherewithal to deal with it, because we always have it. I once heard of art that kara. It's all, there's a rule that there's mischalefes, even if there has to be some connection between the words. So when something happens, we get bopped over the head, kara. It looks like it's just a happening. I can't believe this happened. Rebbeinu Shem, where are you? How could you do this to me? That's a reaction. That's a human reaction. That's an asayin. An asayin means you lose your madregas, you lose your emunah. You work on yourself until you build back up to kara. Kara is Hashem's calling. Hashem put me into this matzav. He has a reason I have to fight through it. And when you do that long enough, then kara, you rip the gzein. So the three karas are directly connected. So Yaakov turns to his sons and he turns to Reuven. He says, Reuven, b'chayriyata, reishis ayni, Reuven, mantayra, Reuven, reishis ayni. You know what that means? You're my par, you lost everything. Sounds like, why does he have to rub it in? You lost the pachas kamayim, al-taisa, you lost the kuni, you lost the malchus, at least don't rub it in. Reuven, you could have been the par, and you blew it. Like, what kind of, wow, what loving words depart from this world over here. Why does he have to rub in that b'chayriyata? So a lot of the Mepharshim learn Yaakov said to Reuven, Mantayra Reuven, b'chayriyata. You're my b'char. I love you like a b'char. Don't think for 1 minute that I don't care for you. You're not one of my children. Let's say Reuven said, Shnei Bonai Thomas, and he said, B'char Shaitahu. What does he think, Shnei Bonai Thomas? He says, you think they're not my sons? What was Reuven's habit? And then Reuven thought, I'm not the b'char anymore, Yaakov said, what do you think? Because I took away the b'char and the kohen from you, I don't love you? Like a child? B'chayriyata, you're my b'char. But you have a nature to be impulsive! You have a nature to move quickly and defend me. Out of my body, get that bed, I'm moving in this bed! You can't be a leader that way. It's the wrong job for you if you're going to be a melech. A melech can't be impulsive. A melech can't act quickly on his emotions. In the parish of Pinchas, Hashem says, pick Yeshua, Chazak v'yamat. Say, Pinchas just show you a pretty good candidate. He says, Pinchas is a kanoi, very nice. But he can't be a leader. Leader has to, think things through. Wait, slow down. Can't jump to conclusions. Rabbi Yehuda Assad, he was one of the big Kedoshei Elyon. He was a Malach Alekim. He walked into Friend Joseph's, he never saw his own image. He said he had an unbelievable, beautiful image. When they walked into Friend Joseph's palace, they came in a whole chabura, he said, we're going to be Matzliach. They said, how do you know? He said, Eliyahu Navi is coming toward us. They said, no, that's a mirror. That's you. That's not Eliyahu Navi. He said, somehow miraculously the doors were open. I don't know, the guards were on strike, together with the dock workers or something, and they marched right into his palace, into his private chambers. And Friend Joseph saw Yehuda Assad, he stood back, and they told him what they wanted from him. Won't get into that now. And he said, you have to give me a bracha. He said, you're a malach. You have to give me a bracha. He had an angelic surah. So you have to give me. So he looked at him and he gave him a bracha that he should have a long reign on his throne. And I think Franz Joseph sat on the throne of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire close to 70 years. One of the longest living monarchs. Just to live long as a monarch in Europe then was a feat on its own. You weren't poisoned or knocked off or shot or by mistake pushed off a cliff or something. But the fact that he reigned for 70 years, and he was always very kind to Jews, indeed, from many different perspectives. So we don't get into a biography of Franz Joseph now. But this Rabbi Yehuda Assad, the Malach Alekim, was once sitting someplace, and there was a chasana. The Ksav Sofer was at the head of the table, and the Ksav Sofer said, I have an amazing thing to show all the Rabbanim. He said, I have a Machzis HaShekel, an original Machzis HaShekel. And they passed it to all the rabbis, and they passed it to all the rabbis, and they didn't come around. Anyone know where the Machzah Shekel is? Okay, there's a bunch of Rabbanim over here. Does anyone know where the Machzah Shekel is? Right, yeah. Where is it? So one of the rabbis got up and said, look, it must have by mistake fallen into someone's pocket. Why doesn't everyone get up and, turn our pockets inside out? We'll all close our eyes and, Machzah Shekel, somebody probably wants to take it to show his shear, his shul, what a Machzah Shekel is. Rabbi Yehuda Sad says, no, not mask, not covered. The Rabbanim have to empty the pockets. And everyone's like, okay. They're waiting like a half hour, maybe by now. No, it's not, I'm not masking. What should we do exactly? This is like one in a world, So let's wait a little longer. Let's sing a nigga. Let's do something. They wait an hour. And people are beginning to say, maybe he's a malach, but, what kind of a malach, right? I don't know. Malachs have a lot of wings, Maybe one wing extended a little bit over there. And all of a sudden the waiter comes running in and goes, what's this coin I found on a plate that was taken in over here? Is anyone's coin before I throw it away? Great. So they said to Rabbi Yehuda Assad, why did you stop everyone checking their pockets? He says, you really want to know? He puts his hand in his pocket and he takes out a Machzah Shekel. He says, I have one too, I keep it in my pocket. He says, I didn't say anything when the Ksav Sefer said, I wasn't going to say, hey, I have one also. Wouldn't have taken away from the Ksav Sefer. But all of a sudden then, he was in a pickle, They would have emptied his pockets. They would have found a Machzah Shekel. So you see, a leader you can't jump to conclusions. It has to be relaxed. When the Chaim Volozhin came to the Vilna Gaon about the great idea of the Volozhin Yeshiva, he said, a yeshiva, never was a yeshiva before. A yeshiva, El Mitziyonim, a yeshiva is going to save Torah forever. All the Rosh Yeshivas, all Torah is going to come from Volozhin. It's great. And the Vilna Gaon said, no. Got the impression like, you have nothing else to do. Okay. No Volozhin there. So suffice to say, Chaim Volozhin was a little disillusioned from the less than enthusiastic response. So it came 2 years later, he said, should I build a yeshiva? The girl said, yeah, it's going to be the forerunner of all yeshivas. So he said, how come the last time? He said, no, the last time you came, this is it, we're going to save the world, we're going to build it. And whenever someone does that, it's dangerous. Wasn't so anxious. Now that you're saying, could it work? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Eventually I'll help it, I'll try. That's how you build a yeshiva. Whenever someone comes too overexcited, you got to slow them down. When they say that people that were by a firing squad, and they had to think quick, and the enemy was about to shoot them, and the one guy lined up, and they said, ready, aim, he yells, hurricane! Hurricane, let's get it, run off. He runs away, next guy sees it works, said, ready, aim, goes, earthquake, he'll run off. Third guy comes in and goes, ready, aim, he goes, fire! That was not the right thing to say. A leader can't be impulsive, he can't say fire. So Yaakov said, Reuven, b'choiriyata, you're my b'chor, I love you. But this job is not for you. You're too quick. You're too quick to pull the trigger. And of course, the fact that he did it l'shem shamayim. So what happens to Reuven? Reuven becomes, because he switched up the beds, he becomes the source of tshuva. Hashaya is an anakel of Reuven. Ata pesachta b'tshuva. My father Zachal Bach used to share this word with me. You started with tshuvas, therefore Shabbos tshuva starts with the words of Reuven's anakel. Reuven is the aside of tshuva. Is Reuven the first to do tshuva? Kayin did tshuva. Adam did tshuva. Kayin did tshuva on an avera. Adam did tshuva eating the Eitz Hadas. Reuven did tshuva on a mitzvah. Reuven did tshuva on a mitzvah. I always have in a class over the years when I taught 8th grade. Right, a kid talks. He's in the back of the class. He's schmoozing. Right? No. Okay, go to the principal. Okay. You have a kid like, Rabbi, I don't understand. Rabbi, I don't understand. Wait 1 minute. Like, no, I don't understand. Wait 2 minutes. I'll explain. No, but I don't understand. You have to walk out. What? I'm trying to learn. I have to walk out. Explosion. Trying to learn. What do I do? Goes to the principal. What happened? I don't know. Ask the Rabbi one question. He throws me out. How many times did you ask the question? Just once. Like some people, once means until you get an answer. You know what I mean? That's called once, until I get my way. That's very hard. It's very hard to be disciplined for trying to do something good. So Reuven tried to defend the honor of his mother, and he's crying, and he becomes the site of tshuva. There's a thief of art here. Tshuva was created prior to Bria Sa'olam. Before you walk into a woods, like you tie a rope and you should be able to your way back. Hashem created tshuva before the world, so people should have a way back. Reuven is the b'char. The b'char should be the melech. No. Reuven is the b'char prior to melech. Because Reuven is the side of tshuva. Tshuva has to come before Bria Sa'olam. The fact that Reuven is not the king is not a chesaron in Reuven. Reuven is pre-Bchar. He's tshuva. Now think about the events as they panned out. Because Reuven was thrown off the Bchara, and when Yosef said that dream, and all 11 of you are going to bow down to me. And they went, oh yeah, we're going to bow down to you. Did you hear that? What? You're going to bow down to us? What about guy? Unbelievable. It's your kid brother of ours. So Reuven in the back of his mind said, did he say all 11 of us? I thought that I lost the Bchara. I'm not counting in the Shvatim. He said all 11. Then when it came time that the Shvatim wanted to kill Yosef, so Reuven made two cheshbainos. He said, hey, I'm going to blame me, I'm the Bchar. And second of all, Reuven says, I owe him a karas atayv. He counted me in with the rest of the Shvatim. He said, oh, don't kill him, throw him into the bar. His intention was to come back and save him. So Lamaisa, what happened over here? Because Reuven sinned, so therefore he thought he was thrown out of the Shvatim, so therefore he had a karas atayv to Yosef, so therefore he saves Yosef, who saves the entire world. So that's what Yaakov Avinu was saying. Reuven, b'chayri ata, you're my b'char. You don't like the way things turned out? You're going to see. You may not like the way things turned out. No, I should have been, I could have been, I would have been. But you do what you have to do, and you'll see that you saved the world. You're still my b'char. Right? Yosef is so emotional. He says, why do you have to bury my mother on the side of the road? Say one word, Father. So what does he say? I can't explain it to you. How would he understand it? How would you understand this, Yosef? That one day Yidden are going to go into Galus and Rachel's going to cry for us? You know when that day was? 1,000 years later. Yosef, can you possibly understand what's going to happen in 1,000 years from now? We want to understand why we're suffering. You want to understand Tzaddik V'Ra'aloi. You want to understand why people are sick. You want to You want to understand why so many people are suffering? We see such a narrow scope of the picture. We're looking through such a tiny hole. We don't have peripheral vision. In order to understand why Rachel was buried on the side of the road, you had to be able to have a peripheral vision of 1,000 years. 1,000 years. Rachel gives away the Simon, and what are you doing, Rachel? You bring a rival wife, your sister Yaakov will throw you out, you'll go to Esav. Rachel says, there's no tomorrow. Don't give her the Simonim. Yaakov will throw you out. Esav will be your husband. You will suffer the rest of your life. That's tomorrow. Today, I don't embarrass my sister. And ultimately, what's going to happen, right? Menashe puts up an Avodah Zarah in the Beis HaMikdash. Boom! And that's it. There was a Gzeira, all of Klal Yisrael, Rahman al nothing left. And Kunt Rachel, and Rachel cries. And Rachel says, I wasn't jealous of my sister. So the Rebbeinu Shalom, you're jealous of an Avodah Zarah? And the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, Rachel, you're right. So Rachel defends us. Even if we were to chas v'shalom to fall into the dark of ultimate betrayal, Rachel is there to defend us. Can you understand that, Yosef? Can you understand how Rachel's schus, how the span of Rachel's schus spreads from that night that she made that decision? There is no tomorrow. I do what I have to do now. How that's going to bring the geula? You'll never understand it, Yosef. It's too wide. It's too wide of a scope. We don't have that kind of peripheral vision. We don't see things the way. Reb Chaim Moiser once met Reb Eliyai Chaim Meisels, the Rav of Lodz. He was a murder Talmid Chacham, famous Rav, but he lived in Pidyon Shvuyim, and he lived in... So Reb Chaim Moiser gave him the Shas Jewel Zachayazer as a present. So Reb Eliyai Chaim said, 1 minute, let me give you my sefer. So Reb Chaim Moiser was wondering, in here Reb Eliyai Chaim wrote a sefer. So Reb Eliyai Chaim walks into his room, and he comes out with a huge stack of receipts that he bailed out almonas from the bank, taking away their things, and the things in the Pidyon Shvuyim, and the jails, and the this, and the money he owed in mortgage to save people, and what was going on in Poland during those years. And Reb Eliyai Chaim said, that's a man's sefer. So Reb Chaim Moiser began to cry. He says, who knows whose sefer is more chashuv? You know what I mean? We need Reb Chaim Moiser's sefer, we need Reb Eliyai Chaim's sefer, we need those tears of Reb Chaim Moiser, we need everything. We need everything. So Reuven, b'chayri, you don't like the way things turned out? You know, my marriage, my children, my dreams of success, my career, I'm too old, I'm too young. Well, Allah's up! You don't understand it! Now, they say now that there's a whole brigade of people in the West Coast that besides they have to worry about the missiles coming on top, they're waiting for a big entourage of debris to come now from the tsunami. Which tsunami? It seems that in the tsunami in Japan, almost 3 years ago, there was 5 million tons of debris that went into the Pacific Ocean. Most of it sank, but there's 1.5 million tons that they expect is going to reach the coast of the United States, and this is an environmental problem that they're struggling how to deal with. They said that the area, the span over this 1.5 million tons is bigger than the area of the entire United States in the Pacific Ocean. Now, I ask you, if we're going to walk, a guy's going to be on his rowboat and he sees a bottle coming up, he picks up the bottle. Interesting, you know. In his wildest of his dreams, could he figure out how big this is, what this is connected to, where it's coming from, how many years ago this happened? We don't have the eyes to understand what, when, where, that we should go around would have, could have, should have. Reuven could have gone around would have, could have, should have, and give up. But Reuven said, this is the matzav, I lost the b'chayr, I lost the kon, I have to do tshuva, and at the end, he saves the world. Reuven b'chayriyat, that's the first bracha. The first bracha is that Reuven, you think you blew it. You can't press the reverse. You can't get back your malchus and kahuna, but you should know it's not a mistake. You are where you're supposed to be. B'chayriyat, you're my b'char, even though you lost the kahuna. What did come out this week? That Romney's son said, my father didn't really want to run. Really? He didn't really want to run? Who forced him? You know what I mean? It's always that way, you know. A boy goes out with a girl like 15 times, you know, nudging, and then she says no. He goes, well, I really didn't want the shidduch to start with, you know. I mean, they all do that, you know. Never really wanted it anyway. I remember once somebody, I remember when a kid in my class was raving about a certain teacher, English teacher, greatest teacher in the world, greatest teacher in the world. And the day that he didn't get the valedictorian, the worst teacher in the world, was never good, not one good day a whole year. But you kept saying it was good. That was only, you know, like, you know. You can't fire me, I quit. He says, you can't quit, I fire you. And that's the human response to self-dignity. I want to tell you something. I mean, he spent, what, $10 billion in this campaign? If he didn't want to run, I'm saying, I have a lot to do with those $10 billion, you know? Could have spent, what's that story? The wife comes home from the husband's funeral, real, you know, rich house, and she's crying. She says, please, money to live. They said, you have such a big life insurance policy. What's your problem? You know how much money I spent on the funeral? So, you still have money left over. You know how much money I gave to the Chavre Kadisha? I still have money. I guess I should say Kaddish. Still, you know how much money I spent on the memorial stone? Memorial stone? $100,000. $100,000 on a memorial stone? I said, how big is the stone? She sticks out her finger and goes, 10 carats. How big the stone is that I bought for my the memorial stone. You know, you go to that, all you do with $10 billion. You go a lot of things with $10 billion. You know, how many people go to that parnasa? Let me tell you something. So, of course, everyone says, I was pushed to it. I didn't even want to do it. You know, but I'm not sure. In retrospect, there are a lot of times we look back at our life and we say, why did I do something? I didn't even want to do this. And it's not just a defense mechanism to save our self-esteem. You know, the man says, I was pushed into it. I don't even know why I did it. You know why you did it? Because it was B'Sher that President Obama should win, and he had to win because you were his opponent. Who knows what would have happened to someone else? Kasha, why he had to win. Because those $11 billion that was spent, who knows how many people had Parnasa, you know, whatever the cheshbon was, and every penny, Rosh Hashanah was B'Sher. You're right. We look back at life and we say, you know, so this is what Yaakov is saying. Bikesh Megawa says, okay, I want to tell you it's going to be when Mashiach comes. We're going to have to make decisions in life. We're going to run. Where's the Baal Shem Tov? Tell me what to do. Tell me what to say in the Shemayim. Learn, daven, make your best judgment, ask advice, and gegangen weiter. And life has to go on. That's our Nisayan. That's so Yaakov says to Reuven, Tyra, you know, I didn't give you Musar till now. I still going to run off to Esav. Well, when he's going to run off to Esav now? What's going to stop him now from running? Esav is still alive. His head was still connected till they got to the Maras HaMachpelah. So the answer is that at this point, Reuven sees. He sees, it had to be this way. It had to be this way. I always remember once I was on the FDR Drive. You ever try to get on by rush hour by 71st Street? There's like the access lane is about 3 inches. You know, it's like out in the middle, and the traffic is. I remember it was like 4 o'clock. I was coming back from the hospital, and I was like, you know, the car's behind are beeping. I'm like, how could you go? You know, and the guy gets up from the car behind me, and he comes up, he rolls on me, and he goes, hey, pal, he says, rush hour is going to be over in 4 hours from now. You know what I mean? Like, how long do you plan on sitting here? So the guy says to me, what am I supposed to do? He says, sooner or later, doesn't make a difference how many cars are coming, somebody is going to klutz. Somebody, I would say someone would slow down and let you go on, but this is New York, but someone hesitates. Yeah, that's how it is. And you have a long line of cars, someone has this daydreaming or is fixing his glove, and then you hop around, you wait for that person to hesitate. So I say, what if people wouldn't hesitate? The Kadosh Baruch Hu makes us make mistakes and hesitate because the world has to function, because somebody else has to get in. It's all part of the plan. So steht in the Chesed Lavram that Reuven was a Gilgal of Cain. Just like Cain killed his brother, Reuven was massacred by saving his brother. Cain was the first who did tshuva, but it was not a sincere tshuva. And he lifted that level of tshuva to a much higher level. And in his second Gilgal, he was Yisroi. Oh, well, I'm not going to get it. Small world, right? But the point is, Reuven had to be the bridge between Cain and Yisroi. And the only way Reuven can be the bridge between Cain and Yisroi is if he would be in the situation where he lost his future and he had to deal with what happened. And not saying I would have, could have, should have. Somebody once came to the Satmar Rebbe Chaim Levracha, and he asked him for $5,000. He was in desperate need. And the Rebbe gave him $4,900. So the Gabba asked the Rebbe, why the $4,900? He said, the man would have plots if they would have given him the whole $5,000. He goes, why? He says, if he would have asked for $5,000, I would have given him $5,000. He would have said, why didn't I ask for 10? I said, oh, easy, he gave it to me. Why did I say 5? I gave him $4,900. He feels good. He knows that he asked for the right amount. I wouldn't have given him more. Now you have to think about where somebody else is, where he's going. So L'maisa, I want to wrap things up. We started late. There's just a little cake here, whatever we had. Today's the yard site, or was the yard site, of Rav Moshe Leleva. Rav David Leleva was a tzaddik. He was a little boy. He grew up to a very simple farmer. Rebbe Melech passed his house one day, saw the little kid playing, ran in, said to the mother, "Who's your husband?" And said, "Alamed Vav Tzaddik." There she is. He's hiding it from me too. Probably hiding it from himself. And they called the tzaddik. What does your husband do? The Rebbe Melech said, "You have such a kid. I don't know what he does. He drinks. He takes care of the chickens. What does he do?" Because one thing he does when it comes to Shabbos and it comes to Shalom Shaloi, we should have children. Oiskim the Torah the mitzvahs. He cries his heart out. Mamish cries his heart out. He says, "Now I got it." So he asked permission if he could take Rav David. Later, when the father came, he should be mechanicher. That was the great Rav David Leleva. David had a son, Moshe. This Moshe, toward the end of his life, when he was in the 70s, he had some Messiah from the Chayza. That if he brings the Chayza's Kais Yeshua Sasa to the Kaisel, he can bring the Geula. And he set out to do it. Set out with his family, came to the Rishon. The Rishon said, "Wait for me, I'll come with you to Eretz Yisrael also." He said, "I have a white beard, I can't wait." When he left, the Rishon said on him, "Ein Poilin la'or haner," that Poland doesn't have any or haner if they can let such a person go. And there's myriads of stories. His trip to Eretz Yisrael was not an easy one. His Arav is dried up. He gave all the money he had that he planned to live on Eretz Yisrael to the captain to pull over to make a pit stop to pick up Arav. His shamas disappeared when the ship started going. All kinds of stories. When he got to Akko, so he said something very interesting when he stepped onto the Eretz Yisrael. He said, "Yoim Lashana." Yoim Lashana. What's Yoim Lashana? He came to Tver. He didn't want to stay there because the Chassidish group was in Tver. The Gros Talmidim were in Yerushalayim. He traveled to Yerushalayim, and on the day he was supposed to bring this kais, the kais fell out of his hands and it crashed into 100 pieces, and he became very sick. And he asked that they should carry him to the kaisel, and they carried him to the kaisel. And in the middle, the Arabs started bombarding it with rocks, and they had to turn around, come back, and he passed away that day. He said, "Mishmaim, they don't let." Never quite made it to the Kaisel. He was buried next to Zechariah Hanavi. It's interesting, he said that they shouldn't fast for Atziras Chshamim in Yerushalayim till his yard site, because he'll still try to take care of it on his own. From Shmuel Salantach, he used to never was Geyser Tainus before Yud Gimel Tevis. Yud Gimel Tevis is the day of rain, he said. So we saw that a little bit Pechush here tonight. He also said that on his yard site, those that get other people to make a bracha, so I guess you can still do it the night after the yard site goes after the day. He says he'll try to be a Melitz Yosher. So we know we all need Yeshua, so Simchas, the Davish to help in the schus of Moshe ben David. Should make a bracha. Should be Yeshua's for all of us. Now, what does this mean? That he failed? Did he fail? He didn't fail. Because at the end, when Mashiach, he started the first Chassidish Shalshelis in Eretz Yisrael. He changed a little bit the dynamics of the ground. His children did in Eretz Yisrael. It looks like he failed. He didn't fail. Because in the step to Mashiach, in the step to Geula, there are many missteps. And the missteps are just as necessary. Reuven's chait was just as necessary as the Yeshua. This is what the father said to them. He said to them, Ish asher b'rchasai. He said, the greatest bracha in life is you should be who you are. And don't give up. And I want to conclude with the following story. Someone told me his wife wasn't well. This person told me the story himself. Wife wasn't well for a while, and things were needed rachmei shamai. And he's in the hospital, and he says, he wants to go down to daven. And he made a cheshbon, the closest shul was 30 blocks away, besides for the 8th flight descent. So he said he'll leave at 8 o'clock, it'll take him an hour to walk, he'll be there by 9, finish davening by 11, he'll be back by 12. His wife said, okay, so go. So he puts on his talus and he starts his descent. Stairway 1. He comes down, he realizes in this particular hospital, the way it was set up, none of the stairways led him to the main lobby. But the stairways to access from the second floor to the first floor, it led only directly to, each of the stairways led to its own door on the outside. Okay, so he walks down the stairway, he comes to the outside door, it's alarmed. If he opens up the door, the alarm goes off, it's Shabbos. So he runs up the stairway, tries stairway A, stairway B, stairway C, stairway D, everything is alarmed, and there's no other access. The only way to get to the main door is through the elevator. So he asks one of the staff, is there any other stairway? He thinks behind the offices, the financial offices, another stairway, I think that there you can go walk out. So he walks behind those offices, there's not a soul there, it's the financial offices, it's a weekend. He walks down, it's also alarmed. Turns around to come back up, and the door is locked. Can't get back in. Can't get out because it's alarmed, and he can't get back in because the door is locked. He starts banging, there's no one there. Empty offices, long corridor. Runs to the street of Manhattan, bang from the inside. What's the chance of someone coming along? Maybe somebody will bang back, but so he says, look, if I panic, I'm in trouble. I'm not going to panic. Why don't you just put on my towels and start davening? So he tells me like he davened like he never davened before in his life. I mean, the nishmas that he said then, the pouring everything out, the ritzeinu of nuchaseinu. Somehow when you're alone, locked in a stairway, he says it was ringing off the walls. When he finished davening, everything was wet. Let it all out, a huge thing off his chest. Now, what does he do? He estimated it was about 11:30. So he figured, I don't know, at least his wife is only expecting him at 12:30, at 12. So he walks up, he starts banging, walks down, he starts banging. He bangs 72 times, Gematria Chesed, maybe, Finally, he's banging on the outside door. Someone comes by on the outside, says, hey, you stuck there? He says, yeah. Because what, can't open the door? He goes, no, I can't open the door. Didn't say, why I can't open the door? Can you open it from the outside? He goes, oh, don't go. He says, why don't you call someone from your cell phone? He goes, my battery's out, okay? He said, can you call the security guard? The security guard comes and says, how'd you get there? He says, I don't know. He explains how he got there. Gets some ice, he comes around, he opens up the door from the other side. He runs up. Oh, one more thing. As he's knocking outside, the guy says, you stuck there? He says, yeah. He says, by the way, what time is it? So the guy tells him it's 1:45. He goes, ay. So he finally, by the time they got him out of there, they figured out where he is. On the other side, it was 2 o'clock. And he had to make a ascent 8 floors. And he had to calm down a little bit. And he walks in, and he sees that his wife is obviously nervous. And she's saying to him, she says, I gave it till 12:30. I said somebody called you in for Kiddush. I gave it till 1. Then I panicked. I started saying Tehillim. It says to when do you start saying Tehillim? She says at 1:45. That's when I started saying Tehillim. Because somehow he felt that was a turning point. Baruch Hashem, things are okay. There is a moment in our life where it looks like we blew it. We trapped ourselves. We locked in. There's no place to turn to. You can run off to Esav, or you can say, Ruvain b'chayri ata. But this is your matzav. Deal with it. Cry from where you are. And when you do so, you open up gates of Yeshuas that otherwise would have never existed.